is the analysis of interactions of forms of life, defined specifically as the study of relationships between living organisms and their environment. It is ecology. Time to science. Now these relationships can take many forms. Let's look at all of them. First, there's mutualism, where both organisms benefit in the relationship. Oh, how nice. But then, there's parasitism, where a parasite infects a host and benefits at the host's expense, much like a tick or a flea. We also have herbivory, where organisms eat plant material for their food, much like cows, and vegans, and vegetarians. Ugh. But however, most people, your scientists included, is a predator, where we consume other organisms, like cows, vegans, and vegetarians, although that's called cannibalism. Don't try that. Trust me. It doesn't go well. One thing about these relationships that we must know, and that is competition. To where competitions, because of scarcity of resources, different organisms need to compete for those same resources, which they can be intraspecific between two species, or they can be interspecific for the same species, much like the cameraman and I. However, the cameraman knows that should he try to challenge me for my resources, I will gut him like a fish. Still filming? Now it's time for biodiversity, otherwise known as why I'm Mexican and the camera guy is white. You see, with the different species in the environment, they all kind of mix together, which is then called biodiversity. With this, different species live within the same environment, and their interactions is what makes up the ecology of this area. Now on to communities. No, not like Baltimore, ecological communities, one where species can actually get along. Now you see, as I had mentioned before with biodiversity, when there are more of a species in an area, they form a community. To where, for instance, a deer and a human hunter, they form a community because they have interactions within each other, to where the hunter, the human in this case, can rightfully murder deer for their meat to consume, because they're a predator, and it's their right as predators. Bow down to your king, king of science.
Look at my down, look at my down, look at my down, look at my down.
Now, you see, when we actually come down to it with nutrients, we have either the plants or the animals, or, well, that gets a bit muddy. We have the Autotrophs and the Heterotrophs, to where the Autotrophs produce their own food, much like this dune grass here, to where they take sunlight and then use photosynthesis and light-independent and light-dependent reactions to create their energy, as well as store it for future use. However, heterotrophs can't really do that. So we go about, humans, I should say, we go about consuming other things, such as plants and other animals. To where, however, the only problem with that is that only 10% of the energy produced by the organism is then passed on. So, for instance, let's say that this plant was to produce some level of energy, and that it was to be consumed by, let's say, a deer, and then consumed by me. So the way it would work is that the 10% rule states that only 10% of the energy is passed on, because the other 90% is used for bodily processes, as well as some of it's lost due to heat exchange. And so what happens is that from that plant, I only end up getting about 1/100th of the actual energy produced by the plant. Well, now with this ecology documentary done, I really guess I don't need a cameraman anymore.